Start off then by talking about this new charge which is being introduced in London. In 55 minutes' time, or a little bit less actually now, the drivers of older polluting cars will have to pay an extra tenner to drive into central London. So that will be on top of the congestion charge, meaning it'll cost, well, potentially thousands of drivers £21.50 a day. Five Live's Stephen Chittenden can explain a bit more about this. Hi, Stephen. What is
Rachel.
it?
You know the C charge. People who drive into central London will see a big red C on the road in front of them. That's the congestion charge. That's the zone, central London. That's the charge of £11.50 a day. Well, from today, it's the T charge. There are no red Cs painted on the road, but according to Transport for London, around 32,000 vehicles a month that don't meet a standard of emissions called Euro 4 or better, they will have to pay this extra charge. That emission standard was introduced around 2005. It applies to cars that were sold from 2006. Modern cars have to meet a standard called Euro 6, so most will be exempt from this. If you want to find out whether your car is not exempt and you'll have to pay, there is a handy checker on the TfL website. You just put in the number plate to see, and most cars are, including many pre-2005 reg. I mean, I put in the number of a 2002 petrol Mondeo. That won't have to pay, but a 2001 diesel did. And this T charge is actually just a stage, because it will be replaced within the next 3 years or so by a thing called the ultra low emission zone, which will be a bigger zone with tighter controls, and that's happening in the next 3 years.
Right, so this is a kind of a preliminary phasing towards that, is it? Why are they doing it? Presumably it's all about air pollution, is it?
It is. They say that London's air is dangerously polluted, and the T charge aims to improve it, especially with regard to nitrogen dioxide and particulates, both of which have an adverse effect on human health. To find out just how bad they are, I've been for a ride in a mobile monitoring unit, an electric van with a lot of pipes sticking out the roof. It was driven by Duncan Mansour from Enviro Technology, and as we headed down the Euston Road, it went off the scale.
So the Smogmobile is just passing Euston Station. A system in the car has given us a reading of 212 micrograms of nitrogen dioxide per cubic metre, which is just busting through the hourly limit value. But the annual is meant to be around 40, isn't it? The sort of baseline. And this is over 200.
Yes, the annual limit value is 40 micrograms per cubic metre, and it's set at that level because that level is the level that the medical profession consider to be unsafe if it was any higher than that for a year.
What's it doing to my lungs?
Those of us in the air quality business have long known about the numbers of air pollution related deaths in the UK. The 50,000 air quality deaths that are typical in the UK each year.
Right, so there's no doubt that there is a problem. Just had this text through from Paul the trucker who stopped at Watford Gap Services to say he just checked his 17-year-old BMW petrol V8 on the TfL website and it's exempt. He says it seems absurd. Despite its age and large engine size, it actually meets emission standards. So it's not about a vehicle age, it is about how polluting it is, which is exactly what you were saying, Stephen. But presumably the system will know if your car does not meet the standards and therefore you will be charged. Is everyone aware of this new rule being introduced?
I don't think they are, and I think people should check, because there are a lot of older cars which are exempt, so you don't want people paying who don't need to. I don't think people are fully aware. There's no grace period for anyone who drives into the central zone and needs to pay and doesn't, so they'll be hit with the fine. There's a bit of opposition. The RSE Foundation say the T-charge is quite a blunt instrument because on a mile basis these older vehicles are more polluting, but it could be that newer vehicles are actually worse because they do much higher mileages. It punishes lower income households, they say too. Worst of all, really, among the drivers in London that I asked, almost nobody had heard of it.
I heard absolutely nothing about it, no.
You surprised?
Yeah, very surprised. Yeah, never heard of it, yes. Not been on the news?
Well, it will be now.
Okay.
You are a driver?
Yes, I'm a driver.
And you're in London, and you've heard of the congestion charge?
Yes.
Have you heard of the T charge?
You've just explained it to me, so yes,
You're spoiling it. So before I did, you hadn't heard of it?
No, I hadn't heard of it.
Toxicity charge, an extra tenner for polluting vehicles.
It's probably a good thing. It doesn't affect me because I've got a new car which, from the sound of things, won't be affected.
Have you heard of the T charge?
No.
Toxicity charge. It's hard to say, isn't it?
It is, but that'd be a good thing.
You think it'd be a good idea?
Yeah, definitely.
But you've never even heard of it?
No, I know, but, I breathe the air, so it's important.
I'm surprised that it's not made a bigger thing out of the press. Thought there'd be a bit more, otherwise there's going to be a lot of unaware drivers.
Ultra low zone?
You're the first person actually who's heard anything.
That's only because I'm trying to get a motorbike in town and I know you have to get it in a certain year. That's why I've had to try and source a motorbike which is post 2007 so that it doesn't fall into that category. It's a shame because you'll lose all the nice classic cars and motorbikes in town.
Well, do you think £10 will put off a classic car owner?
It won't, no.
Yes, it's interesting. It sounds like a lot of people might get caught out by this, Stephen. I was just looking at some of the figures around this. They think it'll affect around 7% of vehicles. But in terms of the cash it'll bring in, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it could be millions. One estimate is around £23 million a year. But it depends how it affects driver behaviour, because presumably that's the whole point about this. It's to discourage people from driving into the centre of London if they don't really, really have to.
Yes, it is. And you can actually see how even the congestion charge affects driver behaviour. The reason that the Euston Road is the most polluted, or very much one of the most polluted parts of London, actually one of the worst in Europe, is that it's on the northern boundary of the congestion charge. So if you're trying to get from east to west without paying your money of going through it, then that's your nearest route. That's why it's so bunged up along that boundary, and one could anticipate that people who don't want to pay the T charge will be using that same route. So roads like that might actually get worse.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you very much, Stephen Chittenden. 50,000 deaths we heard, didn't we, recently linked to pollution every year in this country, very often for people with kind of pre-existing conditions that make them more vulnerable to pollution. But is that you? Have you noticed a difference where congestion charges have been introduced? Has it made the quality of air better? Or are you one of those, perhaps you have asthma, where living in the centre of a city has really made life much more difficult for you? And were you even aware of this? Do you have one of the cars that might be affected by this? I'd like to hear from you this morning. If you're going to have to be paying hundreds of pounds extra a year, potentially, to get to work or to deliver goods or whatever it might be, then do get in touch with us this morning, 85058, to send us a text, or if you want to contact